Joseph Mengele left Auschwitz on the 16th of January. He brought with him his records from Auschwitz. PhD, MD that he was, he thought that these were his key to fame, fortune, to prestige in the future world. He couldn't bear to let it go. He died by drowning. Clean death. Brief suffering, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds. A shock to those he left behind, but to the victim it's as clean and pleasant a death as one could imagine. Kramer went on to Bergen-Belsen. When the British captured Bergen-Belsen, he was tried, found guilty, and killed. Rudolf Hess was captured and tried, and he was hung at Auschwitz. They kept the gallows where they hung Hess. It's the only place you feel any sense of joy.
Und hatte einen eigenen Kommandanten und Adjutanten. Der Kommandant war für den jeweiligen Lagerbereich zuständig und verantwortlich. Von den Geschehnissen in Birkenau habe ich erst dort im Laufe der Zeit erfahren und hatte damit nichts zu tun. Ich hatte keine Möglichkeit, diese Geschehnisse in irgendeiner Weise zu beeinflussen, noch habe ich sie gewollt oder betrieben. Ich habe keinem Menschen etwas zuleide getan, noch ist jemand durch mich in Auschwitz umgekommen.
This picture was taken when Carl Hooker is at the firing range. You see him in the foreground carrying his gun over to the table to begin his target practice. The pose that he's giving is very reminiscent of the pose of an officer on the ramp in the Lily Jacob album with his back turned to the camera. Obviously, we don't know and will never know who this officer is, whether it could have been Carl Hooker. And he was identified by a survivor as someone with the last name Hooker. Throughout the Frankfurt Auschwitz trial, Hooker testified time and again that he had never been on the ramp. He had never been to Birkenau and had never participated in a selection. And so, if this is photographic evidence that Carl Hooker was on the ramp, that he participated in a selection, that proves that he lied throughout his entire trial and really should have been sentenced to life or put to death for his activities at Auschwitz.
It is conceivable that Hooker, upon arrival, was instructed to familiarize himself with every aspect of the camp. A man like Hooker wants to make himself useful and wants to make himself influential. You don't want any surprises reaching you because you don't want any surprises reaching your boss.
I was asked to find if I could find consistencies with Hooker in other pictures and compare the pictures together and see if I can come to a conclusion whether or not this person here would be consistent with Hocker. So I drew from several photos provided to me. SS records said that Hocker was 1.75 meters tall. So what we can do here is we can actually set up in 1.75 units tall. This picture has a known height in it. This is a Mauser, and we know that it's 1,110 millimeters tall. Compared against the height of our known Hocker, which we know is 1.75 meters, we see that the gun comes right up to about here. What I did from there is I used measurement tools to measure each area of his body in an accurate fashion. So you can see right here we get 1.75. His shoulders are about 0.38 meters across from the elbow to the bottom of the palm, 0.29, and the height of the boots about 0.42 meters. What I did is I brought all of these photos into Photoshop and I extracted them each from the original photo, and I didn't destroy any of the proportions. So I made sure that our width was exactly the same in pixels and our height was exactly the same in pixels. So what we see here is actually a pretty striking similarity between these four photos. You can see that the waist is almost the exact same height in all of them. You can see that kind of right across the pelvis, they all line up. The height of the boots line up from heel to the top of the boot. The knees line up, and the top of the head lines up. They all line up extremely well. And this man's proportions seem consistent with the subject here.
Identifying individuals is very difficult, and it's by no means an exact science. But within individuals, there are certain uniqueness to them. The length of the forearm, the length of the arm in general, stance and gait, size of the head, size of the inseam. These are all things that in and of themselves may not be unique, but added up totally across the entire human, that particular subject, they become unique. And so you look at that unique kind of fingerprint aspect of his physiology and say, okay, now is it present in the picture where he's the unknown subject, or the unknown subject is that person, Carl Hocker?
Slowly. What we're going to do is we're going to get all these measurements all at once.
When our crew was at Auschwitz, one of the things they